Former President Trump was defiant ahead of closing arguments today. Speaking at the courthouse, he blamed President Biden for his legal troubles in New York. Shelby Talcott and Hugo Lowell joins us now. Shelby is a politics reporter for Semafor, and Hugo is a political investigations reporter for The Guardian. It's great to see you both. So Shelby, tell me how Trump is framing the trial now that it is almost over.
Well, Donald Trump has been pretty consistent throughout this entire trial in framing it as this is all, not just this trial, but all of his legal issues are politically motivated by the Biden campaign. And we've heard that from Donald Trump. We've heard that from his surrogates. We've heard that from his campaign. And so what we saw this morning was really a continuation of what we've heard this entire trial, which is this is unfair. I've done nothing wrong. This is all politically motivated because it's an election year and I am running against Joe Biden. And
this is what we heard too when he was president and faced some questions as well. So, Hugo, I want to ask you about the defense's closing argument today because you've been closely following what's happening there. What do they want the jury to take away from this case? What is their final message to them?
Yeah, I think there are three big points. Number one, that it was Michael Cohen who falsified the records if there was any falsifying to be done. You know, he submitted the invoices to the Trump organization, and it was as a result of his invoices that there was this cascading effect of all these other entries being entered into the Trump organization's ledger. Number two was the fact that there was no object crime. There was no second crime, which is what prosecutors have to show in order to get a conviction on falsifying business records in the first degree. Prosecutors have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump had an intent to commit the second crime, and basically Todd Blanche was making the case that there was no intent to commit a second crime. There was no intent to commit a crime whatsoever. And then lastly, there was this point about Michael Cohen and how anything he said was not believable because he has a track record of lying about things both meaningful and not meaningful, and that he lies with abandon whenever there is an interest to him, whenever it suits himself.
Well, not far from where Hugo is standing, Shelby, the Biden campaign was also there today as all of what he just laid out was unfolding. They were there with some star power, with Robert De Niro, with officers on January 6th. Can you talk about why?
So when you talk to the Biden campaign, they said that this had nothing to do with the fact that there was a trial going on. And in fact, the majority of the comments made by Biden surrogates were not about the trial. They were about January 6th and the argument that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. At the same time, of course, it's notable that they were in front of the trial. They claim that that was simply because that's where all of the media is. And so I think that indicates to me, though, that, you know, the Biden campaign has really been struggling to figure out the perfect way to work around these trials. And these trials are taking up so much energy and so much oxygen for Trump. Even though it is an inherently negative thing to be on trial, the end-all be-all is that Donald Trump is getting all of the media attention. So they came to New York, where all of the media was, and sort of stirred up this drama, and then talked about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy, which is really their core argument right now as to why voters should vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump.
And of course, it's not just this trial. Hugo, I want to shift to another trial where the classified documents are at the center. And the judge rejected the special counsel's request to limit Trump's speech on this. So can you talk about what impact that might have on the case?
Yeah, so away from New York, we have the separate case, the classified documents case in Florida. And over the Memorial Day weekend, the special counsel's office, led by Jack Smith, filed this motion to effectively prevent Trump from making false statements about the FBI's use of force when they went into Mar-a-Lago to retrieve the classified documents they had issued a subpoena for. And basically, Trump had been claiming on Truth Social and elsewhere that Biden essentially wanted to assassinate him and that the allowance of the use of force was indicative of that. The special counsel's office pushed back and said, well, you know, this was our standard use of force policy across all of our operations. And when the special counsel filed this, they filed this on Friday night, the Friday before Memorial Day. And Trump responded in this pretty aggressive fashion to say, well, you know, this is not a proper conferral with defense counsel, and as a result, we want sanctions. And Judge Cannon actually endorsed Trump's motion in this case. And they basically said, you know, in the future, if there is not a meaningful conferral, I am not going to allow you to file these motions, and as a result, kind of admonish the special counsel, despite it was the fact that Trump was making the inflammatory remarks.
Well, Trump has been talking a lot, both at where you are and any time he really gets a chance. So I want to ask you, Hugo, about how he's clearly using these trials as part of his campaign strategy now that we are so close from Election Day.
Yeah, this was something that the Trump campaign gamed out months ago. They knew that Trump was going to be stuck in a courtroom for the entire day, 4 days a week in this New York criminal trial. And as a result, they had to come up with ways to basically dominate the airwaves. And he knew that by virtue of him being on trial, being in a courtroom, that he'd be able to suck up the media oxygen. But he goes further, right? Like on the days that we're not in trial, we had a number of days last week when we were down from trial. He is using his platform, whether it's through social or at rallies, to talk about the things he wants to talk about. Kind of framed in the correct way or not, it gives him a lot of oxygen. And I think the insinuation that Biden wanted to assassinate him was exactly that. It was trying to play to the media and to try and get them to kind of talk about the claims that he wanted to make.
All right. Hugo Lowell and Shelby Talcott, thank you both for spending some time with us today.